Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. And now, here's this week's edition of Work Comp Matters. And welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. And I'm trying to do something at the very last moment here. Here we go.
Thank you.
All right, and there is the rushed birthday song for Mr. John Scalia, and I'll let him decide if he wants to tell you how old he is today. It is July 27th, a minute or two after 12 noon. Good afternoon, everybody. And my name is Steve Appell, and we are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. As well as A1 Law. I'm, of course, joined by my chief of staff, the Dr. Mike Zyma. And as you can hear about that horrible opening that I didn't plan at all just for the last minute, it is the madman across the water's birthday, John Scalia. And I spoke to him in pre-show. Basically, I told him he could do whatever he wanted to do. So he's going to take a couple of minutes or maybe the whole entire show, but we have to take a break, and he's going to entertain you. So we'll do this long-winded introduction. For 35 years, he was a practicing workers' compensation attorney in Southern California, practicing the socialist life. He retired, semi-retired about 4 years ago, moved out to Munich, Germany, and now he's actually living the socialist life. With his special birthday segment show, Mr. John Scalia.
Well, thank you. Yes, it is indeed my birthday. And while a lot of people are reluctant to talk about how old they are, my age is actually on my Facebook page. I never try to hide it. Actually, I find it amusing because even I find it hard to believe I'm that old. I turned 74 today. 74 is not really a cool age like 75. You know, when you're 75, you can say, I've been on the planet for 3/4 of a century. When you're 74, you can say, well, if I live another year, I'll be on the planet for 3/4 of a century. But having said that, 74 is really, really old. You've been on the planet for a long time when you're my age. How long have you been on the planet for? Well, you're even older than some countries. I am older than the state of Israel. I am older than the People's Republic of China. Yeah. So, you know, if you put it in perspective, I have been on the planet for a long, long time. What I told Steve I wanted to talk about today, or at least in the beginning, I want to talk about Black Lives Matter. And as I go on, I think you'll see why it's even more relevant this very day than even before today. First of all, let's be clear. I'm a white guy, okay? And I benefited from white privilege. And anybody who doesn't think they benefited from white privilege and is white is probably delusional, because I can give you as good an argument.
Uh-oh, something may have just happened to John.
Really
Go.
No, my kids are calling me on my birthday. I don't know why. They know I'm on the program. Anyway.
Go ahead.
You know, I could have given you the whole story about how I came from a single family home. I didn't meet my father till I was 35 and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, that's really, you know, that's just gilding the lily. The truth is I went to a very exclusive prep school. And because of that, and because we were prominent in debate when I was a senior in high school, my mailbox was full of letters from colleges begging me to go to their school. Okay? That probably wouldn't have happened if I'd been black and going to an all black, which mainly existed at that time, school. So yes, and then I went to a very good college, and I went and
seems like John is being called again.
yeah, I don't know what's wrong with them. They know the time. Anyhow, so I'm gonna shut my phone off if that'll help. I don't know. But so I admit that I'm a product of white privilege.
Hey, John, do you want to take 60 seconds to deal with the technical difficulties? I mean, I'm not shy.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. John got into his birthday rant, and then all of a sudden he starts getting calls from the family. Now, I don't remember John ever getting calls during the show. That happens very rarely. But of course, today's his birthday, but all of his family knows he's on Work Comp Matters. Now, John's family, if you want to wish John a happy birthday, give me a call, 818-357-4120. We'll put you right on the air. But please, leave John's phone alone for the next 20 minutes. Okay, John, are we ready to go? And no, it's okay. And so tell you what, I'm going to read it.
I just turned my phone off.
Okay.
So I'm back. Hopefully it won't keep interrupting me on
do you want me to take another
okay.
60 seconds, John, or you want to take it?
No, I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
So where was I? Well, I was back to the fact that, I went to very, very expensive, exclusive college, and I went to law school at UCLA. And, we had virtually, when I was at UCLA, out of a class of 300, we may have had 10 minorities, maybe. Okay. So that'll tell you something about white privilege. When I was in law school, I got to see, well, even before I got to law school, even when I was an undergraduate, I realized that society treated whites and blacks differently. The first time I walked a picket line, I was 18 years old, and I walked a picket line in Oakland, California, because Jack London Square was brand new, and they weren't hiring black workers. Yeah, in Oakland, believe it or not. That's how times have changed somewhat, obviously. When I was in law school, I worked with the Indians. I worked with the Indians up in Bishop, and I saw poverty firsthand that I'd never seen before. I saw neglect of an entire community thanks to government regulation that I had never seen before. In fact, I was so appalled, I became convinced that the Indians may have been bigger victims of racism than African Americans. It's a close call, let me tell you. So when Black Lives Matter finally burst into the public realm, it was not surprising to me that what the grievances were. And I also understand that most white people did not realize that those grievances were real. I don't think at their heart, most white people were racist. They were just ignorant. They just didn't understand that black people and white people got treated differently by the cops. They didn't understand about the incarceration rates of black people. I mean, they could have understood. I mean, if they had gotten a book or read or just looked around, they could have. But the reality is most people don't do that. So in the environment they were in, they just lived in blissful ignorance and figured, oh no, this is a fair society and everything that's going on is it's just a few bad apples at the police department, and it's just a bunch of complainers in the black community who are too lazy to get to work and get a decent job. And so it just kept perpetuating itself. Well, now that's changed, obviously. And the big change has occurred because white people finally realized that the grievances black people had and other people of color were real, and that those grievances were not mythological. They were not made of whole cloth. They were, in fact, the real daily existence of people of color. Now, you would think that there's been an epiphany and everything will start changing and everything will start getting better. That's the hope in the narrative. But here's the problem. The people who still have that ignorant view are around, and a lot of them are important people. On Sunday, I believe it was Sunday, and it was published today or Sunday, Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, the junior senator from Arkansas, who's got a degree from Harvard, both as an undergraduate and as a law degree, came out and he said that slavery was a necessary evil and it was tolerated by the founding fathers, even though they believed that it set the course for its own destruction or the destruction of the Union. Now, where he got the latter part of that quote from, nobody really knows. Apparently, he just made it up because nobody seems to be able to find it. Nor does anybody seem to be able to find any quotes from the founding fathers saying that slavery was a necessary evil. If you read the documents of the United States, the documents that founded the United States, you won't find any reference there to the fact that some people are inferior. It says that all people were endowed with inalienable rights from the Creator, not just white people, okay? And the other thing is that, you know, people should be careful about who they quote, because the Republicans want to make a hero out of Abraham Lincoln. And so Tom Cotton, in his racist screed, goes on to say, well, you know, Lincoln realized that the founding fathers knew that slavery would make the extinction of the Union inevitable, and that's why he opposed it. Let me read you an actual quote from Abraham Lincoln. Sometimes I get the impression that if people think they have degrees from Harvard, they don't have to read anything, or they can just make up quotes. But here's an actual quote from Abraham Lincoln in August of 1862. He said, and I quote, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that." Okay? Lincoln was no abolitionist, folks. I mean, I hate to tell good old Senator Cotton, who's clearly a card-carrying fascist. I mean, you know, he enlisted in the army, he fought, he believes in fascism, and there's no question about the sincerity of his fascist beliefs. But the problem is, you know, when you want to invent history, you just do a disservice to knowledge and to humanity. Abraham Lincoln was not an abolitionist. As he said in the quote, if he could have saved the Union without freeing a single slave, he would have done it. Furthermore, I have actually read Abraham Lincoln's speeches when he was running for president. And guess what he said in those speeches? The same thing. He said, I have no problem with slave states and free states in the same union. He said it time and time again. He was not an abolitionist. The abolitionist was Senator Thaddeus Stevens, who in fact hated Lincoln because he thought Lincoln was wishy-washy, well, worse than wishy-washy on slavery. In fact, Abraham Lincoln actually represented a slave owner in court to get the slave back. And he prevailed on that case because Lincoln believed that was the law. And it didn't matter that he was, repossessing a human being instead of a car. And that's what he did. He won the case. So the point is, slavery was an abomination. People recognized it. And when Tom Cotton says, you know, it was a necessary evil because it was necessary for the economy. Oh, by the way, what a great name for a senator from Arkansas who's a racist fascist, right? Cotton couldn't be a better name. I mean, it sounds like somebody made it up for Saturday Night Live. Here's Cotton from the Deep South telling you why slavery was necessary for Cotton and Cotton was necessary for the Union. So, you know, when he says that, he's wrong. And you know how wrong he was? Well, England abolished the slave trade in 1838. And England did not disappear from the economic scales of the world. England was still a world power. In fact, when World War I broke out, England was arguably the biggest power in the world. Okay? So, you know, again, his economic analysis is wrong. His historical analysis is wrong. Pretty much everything he said, and of course, morally, it's an abomination. So the problem is that we've still got all these racists and all these white privileged people who don't even understand that they've had white privilege going out and trying to stop progress, trying to stop the society of the United States from becoming a truly equal place where people recognize the faults of the past and try to rectify them. So that's my opening statement today.
That's your birthday statement. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. As I've said many times before, I don't always agree with everything that you say, but I definitely appreciate all of your contributions to the show. My name's Steve Appell. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. WorkCompMatters is also brought to you by A1 Law, number one computer management system, 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee. Also only $1 a day. A1 Law. Well, he's my chief of staff. He keeps me in check and out of trouble, hopefully, at least 90% of the time, with the first news story of the day. The doctor, but he's not a medical doctor, Mike Zyma.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, and happy birthday to John, and a good many more. I'd just like the record to reflect the fact that on July 27th, the following people came into the world: Norman Lear, Peggy Fleming, and I knew there was going to be a baseball connection. A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez has John's birthday, and Max Scherzer has John's birthday. And I'd just also like to say that on the very day that John was born, Gertrude Stein checked out. All right. Now, at Lake Merritt in Oakland, Oakland officials pleaded with residents Friday to stop gathering at Lake Merritt as hundreds more Alameda County residents tested positive and pushed the number of coronavirus cases to more than 10,000, the first Bay Area county to reach that milestone. Although city officials outlawed vendors and weekend parking lots at parks in May, they have not enforced the ban. Nearly 60 vendors sold food, alcohol, cannabis, and merchandise at Lake Merritt last weekend, and people showed up by the hundreds. Quote, "It's exploded," end quote, said Joe DeVries, an assistant to the city administrator. He said the city will first warn, then fine vendors who show up by slapping administrative penalties on their vehicles. And, you know, folks, I don't know how many of you ever been to Lake Merritt, but when it's a nice day, COVID or not, it seems that a lot of people like to go out and pick up some rays. That's what's going on in Lake Merritt, Oakland, California.
Governor Gavin Newsom, the Gav, on Friday announced more protections for the state's essential workers, including farm workers, truck drivers, construction workers, and grocery employees. But he gave few specific details and said more information would be coming in the next couple of weeks. He noted during his daily virtual news conference that California's essential workers are disproportionately Latino and disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Latinos account for about 55% of the state's COVID-19 cases, despite comprising about 39% of the population. Extinguishing COVID-19 depends on our ability to keep our essential workers safe, Newsom said. Quote, "This is where we're seeing the spread," close quote. John?
San Francisco Chronicle, richer, whiter Bay Area cities got coronavirus testing quickly. Low-income areas didn't. As the coronavirus dug into the Bay Area's low-income Latino and Black neighborhoods this spring, doctors and community leaders pleaded for more testing sites. But even as access to testing grew in wealthier, whiter parts of several Bay Area counties, community testing sites lagged or offered only limited hours in communities of color where the virus was spreading the fastest, according to a Chronicle analysis of test site data from March through mid-July.
Go ahead, Mike.
A surge in COVID-19 cases and a shortage of contact tracers has for weeks hampered Sacramento County's efforts to contact and warn people exposed to coronavirus. Now, an additional hurdle is inhibiting the county's contact tracing, testing slowdowns. Delays to get test appointments and longer waiting periods while labs' turnaround results mean cases land on investigators' desk long after a person should have been told to start quarantining.
And let's see. Did either one of you read about... Oh, John, go ahead and take the next one. Go ahead, John.
Okay. Again from the Chronicle. Coronavirus canceled San Quentin's prison rehab programs, closing a bridge to the outside world. On his first day at San Quentin State Prison in early 2006, freshly transferred from solitary confinement at Avenal State Prison, Troy Williams walked out of the yard ready for a fight. What he saw instead shocked him. Hundreds of people milling around, many in street clothes, making speeches, playing music, running laps, or talking in groups. After serving a decade of a life sentence in the California state prison system, Williams thought he had landed on another planet. However, later that day, he signed up for San Quentin TV, the first of dozens of rehab programs that he participated in until his release in 2014. Williams, who now runs a documentary production company, said these programs helped transform his life. In a time when you need hope, there's programming, he said. The fact that they've stopped is a loss you can't quantify. Prison rehab programs statewide were abruptly suspended after shelter-in-place orders went into effect on March 17 because of the coronavirus pandemic. And the reason that they stopped, I'm not going to read the whole article, the reason it stopped was that they're not equipped. They have no ability to do any of that online. So they just stopped.
Once in a while, we get a nice little story about where John lives, and I'm going to read that right now. German Finance Minister Olaf Scholz intends to unveil a reform of the government's financial oversight as the widening scandal over the collapse of Wirecard AG reaches the highest levels of Chancellor Merkel's government. Schultz's 16-point action plan would install a streamlined system to pursue irregularities among banks, insurers, and payment companies, according to a draft reported by the main newspaper there. It's like the LA Times there. What's it called, John? Or the New York Times? What's it called?
The Deutsche Zeitung.
Yeah, there you go. The new rules would be put in place by spring of next year, the newspaper said. John, you know anything about that? We briefly spoke about it pre-show.
Now, all I know is that it's a more than $1 billion scandal, and apparently the money has disappeared. I guess it was sort of a wire transfer kind of thing. I think. I'm not sure. I've never used it. And apparently they just managed to steal the money. And now there's going to be, it's time to pay the piper. I would point out that Merkel is a conservative, and I think Olaf Scholz is a socialist, the guy who's talking about the reforms. But Merkel is a conservative.
I bank with Chase. Not that I'm really hard up to give any plugs to Chase, but when I need to transfer money, I use Zelle, which I believe is Chase's proprietary money transfer thing. But I get hit up by a lot of people that use Cash App. And apparently Cash App is the really popular thing. But it took me years just to be confident, to send money by Zelle. And Mike, you use anything to transfer your money?
No, I'm the challenged one. Remember, I do not, nor does my wife actually, engage any of those services. We've frankly never really had a need to, and I'm not expecting any need to. So I'm blissfully ignorant on this stuff.
All right. Well,
we are on the net here in Germany all the time. So all our transactions in money basically are done online. I mean, there's I didn't even know that paper checks existed in Germany. I had to have one a long time ago, and my bank actually wrote it for me. But we do everything online. My bank account in my German bank, I just go online and I transfer the money from there. And when I want to send money to the States, I use an app called Wire Transfer or TransferWise. I have another story.
Sorry about that, guys. We're coming down.
Are you doing two things at once again, Steve?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm doing two things at once, and it's not rubbing my stomach and patting my head. I'm sorry about that. John, would you like to say anything at the close of the show or whatever?
Yeah, I have a baseball story. Yeah. MLB's worst nightmare is here. They should have seen it coming. This is from Sports Illustrated. And here we have it. The least surprising possible outcome of MLB's decision to fly some 1,500 people around the country from one coronavirus hotspot to another, buttressed by a hope and a prayer and instructions not to spit in service of playing baseball. They have to stop playing baseball. 4 Marlins player had tested positive for COVID-19 by Sunday afternoon. As of Monday morning, that count was reportedly at least 11 players and 2 coaches. Miami's scheduled Monday night home opener against the Orioles has been postponed. This is a catastrophe. It's also exactly what epidemiologists have been predicting for weeks. Owners and players agreed this spring to eschew a bubble system. Players didn't want to leave their families, and owners didn't want to cede the revenue that comes from stadium sponsorships, and instead use the more dangerous plan of traveling from city to city. The parties also agreed to test players only every other day, returning results within 48 hours, which means a player could be carrying and spreading the virus for nearly 4 days before he knows about it. So there you have another instance of economics overcoming common sense and safety.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. I'm going to try this one more time. Here we go.
Thanks. An improv band.
There we go. There we go. So we got 2 birthday songs in there for you. And believe me, you're probably, some of you listeners are going, how come you didn't sing, Steve? Because you don't want to hear me sing. Okay. I can play a little guitar. I can play a little more piano, but you do not want to hear me sing. It's been a great birthday show. And John Scalia, thank you very much. As always, look forward to your contributions. I hope you and your family remain safe, but most importantly, tell your friggin' kids not to call you during the damn show, okay? And got to thank Mike Zyma for contributing as always, Scott Walton of Uncle Studio, and all the good people back at WorkCompcentral and A1 Law. My name's Steve Appell. We'll see you again tomorrow at noon for another edition of Work Comp Matters.